Oh, hello. Welcome to the studio. Miles here with the band EMEFE. Glad you're joining us today. Come on in, won't you? Today, we have an episode of EMEFE.ptx, a video podcast series where we open up our Pro Tools sessions to talk about our process. This episode is about our song Breathe and Go. We hope you enjoy.
There it is. Let's talk about Breathe and Go. In reviewing for this, I kind of felt that it would be fun to go through the process. It was a very linear creation process through time. There was like specific days that I can remember in which this song was created, and we can kind of like almost go day to day. Together, it's like 5 days, with like a lot in between of me being like but yeah, it was kind of like 5 big days, 5 big moments in the production of Breathe and Go. Should we dive in?
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know the 5 days, so I'm actually kind of I'm personally excited about this.
Yeah, I feel like I know 3 of the 5, you know?
Well, the first day was Jazz and you and I coming down to the studio and then just being like, what do you feel like? Do you remember that day?
I remember the first, you're talking about like the piano day. It was like a piano day. But
Yeah.
didn't you send me the voice memo of the mouth percussion like ahead? Sometimes you'll just like lob these things where you were like, this is a thing, you know?
I think what I might have sent you was Q-Tip, the song Breathe and Stop.
Right.
And I think I sent you that song, and I was just obsessing over that song that day. And I was on my way to our session and probably just texted it to you like, here. I don't know. I probably wouldn't have said anything else, just like, here.
That album turned into like a whole thing for me, like listening to that whole album that song is on. That became like a multi-month, like, go back to that album, go back to that album. So
Yeah.
thanks. That's great.
So when it came time to like, when we sat down here and it was like, what do you want to do? I was like, well, there's that breathe and stop thing. And yeah, on my way, at some point I recorded a voice memo of like a beat that was influenced by breathe and stop, but I don't really know why I did it, but it was just like one of those moments, just like, here's a voice memo. So I probably played that for you. And here's what that sounds like. Yeah. And the project was, let's try to recreate this beat. Let's try to like, because when you beat, I almost don't like using the word, but when you beatbox a beat, it is like you're like doing all these things that are very hard to recreate when you actually get down to like playing it on the drums or in any other way. Like there's like, you're like adding effects in ways that you don't even realize. You're adding like compression and EQ and sometimes delay or just space, like so going like is like, there's like 10 things happening there that's not just sitting down at the drums and playing the beat as it would be written on paper. There's all these accents, all of these like ebbs and flows within this like little 4-bar beatbox. So yeah, I thought it would be fun to try to recreate that beat. And with you and I, like, it's pretty much always a yes and situation. You were just down and we jumped in.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first thing we did?
Oh, no.
Well, it was the hi-hat. Because the other thing about beatboxing, or I can't. This
You can say it, Miles. Just say it.
I can't earnestly
Miles, tell
talk
us about beatboxing, please. Can you just give us just a primer on beatboxing?
I literally just said the thing about beatboxing, or like, what? This can't be
That's amazing.
about that. But
And another thing about beatboxing
is, so the thing is like the swing of it, and like a beat like this, there's like a specific dial of swing that is a lot in the hi-hat. So that was like challenge number one. And so I did the hi-hat live on just like stick and hi-hat, and here's what that sounded like. And it's like a long take that I then looped.
You did a good job capturing the breathiness, right? Like
Yeah.
your opening and closing of the hi-hat and the way that you accented it. Did you use 2 sticks or 1?
Just one.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to get to this.
It's cool.
And then also what helped was adding this plugin, Little Alter Boy, which you put the formant down and it doesn't, somebody will have to define this better than me. It's not, obviously it's not the pitch, but it's the timbre or something. So you're lowering the timbre, it becomes like, while retaining the same pitch. I don't know how that works really. But so that's why it sounds a little bit beefy, and also I added just standard compression anyway. And then it came to the kick drum, and for the kick drum, instead of trying to recreate the kick with like a live kick or something else, I just like basically dragged the voice memo track down to the kick track like that, and then I just like soloed out the parts that are the kicks, and without any plugins, it sounded like. So that's just like straight up iPhone, like the beautiful iPhone voice memos compression that happens, where I'm just like, and like the sound of me doing that close to the mic creates, it like distorts it in like just the perfect way. And so then I just EQ'd it, taking a lot of the highs out and really boosting the lows, getting real technical here, and then just adding compression. Like this is all standard Pro Tools, like the stock plugins, and it sounds like this.
I could see a Breathe and Go sample pack being released at some point. It's some cool sounds.
Yeah, that first one has a pitch. No.
Yeah.
And it has this kind of like Ready Player One or like Tekken, like fight kind of
vibe,
you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it also like has like almost a melody to it because it's from the beatbox original voice memo track. Like it retained whatever like dynamic melodic thing was happening by accident. That could also happen with a live kick drum, but it's harder to make that happen with like an electronic kick drum, because when you're dealing with like the same sound, just boom, 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 there isn't as much air happening, so you get this like, you know, boom 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 bit, like that kind of spectrum of kick drum. Okay, then it started to get freaky. I mean, this one was a no-brainer. It's just cross stick on a snare drum. Nothing much to that. And then we get into these two tracks where like Jazz has at this point in the session gotten his saxophone out, but maybe hasn't put on like the top part. What's the top part called?
The neck. That's the neck of the saxophone.
Yeah. And you're really good at percussion on the saxophone, like using your fingers. I don't know.
I like to think of it as like
exactly.
beatboxing, but for saxophone. You know, just to put it in terms that you'll be comfortable with. You know.
So, yeah, here's what that sounds like.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so the farther down you go on the saxophone tube with the keys, it lowers the pitch of that, like, thunk sound.
Is there a relationship, like if you were to put breath behind that, would it be creating the same notes, or?
In some cases, yes, there's like a linear relationship, and then in other cases, no. And it gets this like kind of weird, like microtonal cool sound. Yeah, saxophone is that flute. It sounds really amazing on flute too. It just sounds like, yeah, it's a great effect.
I feel like it's not something I've heard utilized much. It's a really, really cool tone. It's like it feels very percussive, but it also has kind of like you can still hear the air in it.
Totally.
You know? I guess because you're just covering and releasing, and it has that little bit of suction as well.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And there's like a melody to it.
Yeah.
And that mixed with the hi-hat. Oh, well, sorry. First of all, that's one he tracked, Jazz, you tracked that, and then I like to put on this like delay. Again, it's like a stock Pro Tools plugin that basically just stereoizes it, so that it suddenly feels like bigger. So this is without it on. And then with it on,
yeah.
and that with the hi-hat gets this like crunchy combination. And we have our beat. Oh wait, no, there's one thing. The sax dungs.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Is that the same thing, just with sh all together, like sh?
What is the sax dungs?
Yeah, I think that's a low B flat. I don't
know. That's cool.
Cross stick.
Were you trying to create something out of the voice memo at that point, Jazz, or was this just vibing?
That was probably just vibing. Yeah.
It's great. I don't know. It adds like I mean, there's a whole melodic element to it as well, but the breathiness of it throughout, right? Consciously or subconsciously is kind of like layering this, motif of breathiness, right? Of having this air running through all the parts.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Because even the cross stick has like, well, I don't know if it's a lot of reverb, but it has a fair amount of reverb on it, right? So that even feels airy. Like all the different layers have like this breathy quality to them.
Yeah. Totally.
Putting the breathe and go.
It's very funny, and I did not know this, that the inspiration was a song called Breathe and Stop, which I'm not familiar with. But that makes it even funny because Breathe and Go was actually like inspiration for the lyric. Like that idea was kind of like a nugget, like kind of a kernel, a seed for what the lyrics became.
Yeah.
And so now I don't know this Q-Tip song or the album maybe. I haven't listened to much Q-Tip solo stuff. But
Q-Tube.
Don't forget to subscribe to my Q-Tube.
Yeah, we're talking about Q-Tip.
I know that, Miles. But I'm kind of curious to go listen to that song now and see what it's about.
It's similar. The swing, I would say the swing ratio is like the same. There's like it's a different beat, like there are different accents. That one is a lot more like boom, the breathe, this is like kind of straightening it out as far as the 2 and 4, but they're definitely, this is in the lineage of that beat for sure. And yeah, I love how to me this title, I kind of forgot even that's where this title came from, because by the time it got to you, it was like you ran with the idea of Breathe and Go.
Well, it becomes a game of creative telephone, right? And then you hear what the original phrase was at the beginning of the line, and you're like, oh, I did not expect that.
Yeah. So after we created that beat, then Jazz, you sat down at the old piano and made some magic. Let's hear the piano. I'm curious where, like, are those chords just coming to you, or like, was there more intentionality behind those chords, knowing that we are in like Q-Tip tribe world?
I think that those chords I was thinking about them more as clusters. So the shape, da, da, like the note changes, the top note, but the shape of the chord stays the same in parallel. And there's a lot of fourths happening. So yeah, ba bum bum, they're all stacked on top, and then dun 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 is the next stack. And parallel fourths like that, or like stacked fourths, have this really kind of open, like modern sound, and it's just a cool sound. So there is a little bit of like, sounds a little jazzy, but it's also simple enough to not be that jazzy. But I think that you could probably like hear that as like a, like an Ahmad Jamal sample or something. Like it had that kind of like angular jazzy kind of construction to it. And I think, so I've learned enough from recording with you that I need to make sure there's like an accountability thing happening where like I need to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I can remember what it is and how to do it. Because like, I mean, I know that this is to a click, right? but
I think so.
I feel like the experience of recording with Miles is very like not click. Like the click doesn't really, we don't really use that. So I feel like it's you have to remember what you're doing in terms of like the form of the song. And I think I kept it simple because I was like, I want to keep it so that I can remember this, because if we come back to this after like the chorus or something, I want to not forget what I played. So that's like a mode that I get into specifically working with you, where it's like we want to focus on the details and the granular stuff, but we also want to think about, like, I want to know that whatever I'm improvising in the moment, if it's like the verse, I want to know that I can remember what the verse was after I've already improvised the chorus, you know? And so simple is good when that's the goal, you know?
You made me just think of Stuart Bogey and like improvising with him when he would be leading, when he leads improvisations. A lot of times if we're playing one thing, he'll make a sign that's like while we're playing.
Like this is one.
This is one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cue to like download whatever you're playing right now so that you can remember it. And then as we're playing it, he'll go, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and everybody just goes to 2. We don't know what 2 is, but we go to that, and then at some point we'll be playing 2 for a little while, and he'll be like 1, 1, and he'll count it off and go back to 1. And now this group of musicians has like an A and a B, a verse and a chorus, or maybe the first thing you were playing is the chorus and the next thing you went to was the verse. It doesn't matter, but like just that style of like on the spot songwriting is so freeing, because as you're playing, you're like, okay, this is something I just wrote and it's repeatable and I can go back to it, and I'm gonna just jump off the cliff into this other thing, and now I'm gonna download that thing and then go back, and I feel like that's happening in our process in the studio.
Yeah, for sure.
So just to wrap up day one, then you put on synth bass on the MS-20. And that sounds like this.
I respect how much space you left in that bass part, Jazz. Took a lot of restraint.
Well, I'm now seeing that I put this plugin on it that pitched it up, but originally it sounded like this. And then I pitched it up. And the reason why I pitched it up was because eventually we added Doug on bass, and I kept the original synth bass that you had played and just have it come in the choruses to bolster the live bass. And maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe we did the horns on a different day, because this feels, but maybe we did it all in one day. I don't know, but we then came to the part of the process that we, where it's Jazz is at the microphone with the tenor, and like we're coming up with a phrase, and then you play it down once, and then you do another one thinking of a harmony right on the spot, and then another one, and then another one, and that a lot of times creates these harmonies and phrasings that you wouldn't necessarily think of to write like ahead of time. They're just sort of, it is what it is as it comes out, and then we tweak as we go. But this is an example of, here's all the saxes that Jazz did. for all the sax heads, when we record Barry sax, or when we record tenor, usually at some point we put a Barry part and just pitch it down with a plugin. And lo and behold, you have Barry sax. Great.
Yeah, save your back, use a plugin, you know.
Better living through technology.
Yes.
Okay. Then I'm gonna skip ahead in the process, because then eventually we bring the horn section in. We have Lynn come in and play Barry with Ani on trombone and Jackie on trumpet, and some of those saxes did make it into the final mix just to bolster the horns that we recorded, but all of those parts we wrote out and then had them play. So it sounds like. So that's day one, is me and Jazz doing our thing, and we did like the foundation of all the drum stuff, the synth bass, the piano, and the saxes. And then on day 3, we recorded all the horns, replacing the saxophones. But in the middle of that process, Hav, you came in with Doug, and Jazz, you were also here, and we basically played it for you, and we're kind of like, what do you want to do? And this is a moment that maybe you can shed light on, Hav, where I'm pretty sure in the moment you were like, I don't know that it needs anything. And yet you came up with this part.
Well, you know, it's can I hear that just with Jazz's piano?
Yeah. And then adding Doug in.
Yeah, it was very cool to hear your piano part there, Jazz, because at listening to this, like, same thing. I don't doubt that I was probably like, oh, this is pretty much complete. I don't think it needs anything. And then it's listening to the whole piece, I think subconsciously I like latched on and had a conversation with that piano part, that even just now hearing it, like the moment that piano part started playing it earlier in this conversation, that percussion part came to my head again. Like I was already hearing it again in conversation with the piano piece. But yeah, it's funny. And it was completely subconscious, because had you asked me before this call what I was pulling on, I couldn't have told you, but now I know kind of definitively that it was that piano part that was like the thing that I connected to in this, that like inspired that percussion part, which I still really like. And it's going to be, I don't know how we're going to do that live when we play in Chicago. I'm going to bring an extra backpack with all the little things. It was also very funny to see that video of me playing it, because it really was like a I don't know what I'm gonna play with this, so I'm gonna grab like all of the little things that Miles has and surround myself in this little like forest of percussion and
Yeah.
just discover my way through it.
And there's something so unique about when you're coming up with a percussion part and you have all these different things in front of you and you're trying stuff out, and then you play a thing. I don't know if you experience this, but I feel like it happens to me where I'll play a thing and it's almost like a choreography of like, oh, I liked that. How do I wait? How did I went like did it, like you have to find the thing again and then execute it like you're like doing a little dance.
Yeah. And then you'll like be like, wait, hold on. If I just gotta move this part, because that's a beautiful thing about drums and percussion too, is that they're fully modular, Like you can't change the way a guitar is structured when you're coming up with a piece of it, but I can kind of change the physical structure of this percussion thing to make the flow of it better. And it's actually very funny because that little like syncopated bell part, I remember like having it in my mouth, which I think is actually in the video, but the resonance in my mouth, it was kind of like being muffled by my teeth, so it wasn't resonating. So like I asked Jazz to just like stand there and hold it. And Jazz was like, I could also play it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be great. Do you mind just doing that on the, whatever, it's like the E of whatever note it is, But I was just like, I was so in that mode of like my choreography that I was like, okay, Jazz, I need you to hold the bell here, right next to the cowbell, because I got to be ready to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, are you sure you don't want me to just hit the bell? I was like, oh, yeah. Good call. Could do that.
I love that part so much, and it is like iconic in this way. Like as far as the composition of the song, it's like it started out with you maybe not sure of what your end was with the song, and then the thing you played ended up being like the thing that gives the song its character. Like there's a real character to what you brought to it. Okay, so that was day 2. That was Javier and Doug and Jazz day. We got day 1, we got day 2, 3 was the horns. So then 4 was the eternal wild card, Jake. He came in and the song didn't yet have vocals, but he basically came in and similarly was like, at first, I don't know what we could do here, but he added some like really important synth stuff, I think. Zooming in here, he played the Poly 6, and it was edited, like we edited it, but he added things like this. Which is maybe seems small, but in the context of the song, it adds it's like mood.
Can we hear that in context?
Yes. You hear that?
Yep.
Again, the breath of that synth part is coming through to me. Like it is a.
And then the next section, there's this kind of thing. Here. And that's again another thing that in the context it's like a scene change from the section before. Here it is in context.
It's very cool.
So yeah, again, mood kind of shaping and helping the arc of the song really hit where it's supposed to hit. In the chorus, which we just got to, then he tracked these low notes.
You know what it feels like? It feels like when you're watching someone paint and they add the little bits of white paint, to kind of highlight the way the light reflects. And they're just like these little brushstrokes that they add, and they step away, and all of a sudden the thing is like alive.
Yeah.
It's like these little finishing details that they add so much life to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And then the chorus section, he added another piano track, but that ended up being also very important. So, yeah, obviously that's a thing that is, as you can see, like on the chorus on the left side over here, that's not happening. It's a different feeling kind of chorus. But this chorus, that piano track in particular, helps with like, it just hits differently. And then for the last contribution that Jake had were these synths in the intro and in the outro, where he plays the melody. So that's at that point in the song, the horns come back in, and as you can see, originally the horns play that melody, da, 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 da. But because the horns are playing so much right before it, then it just felt good to, instead of then going back to the horns, then instead the keyboard plays the melody instead, which kind of like lightens it up and also gives the ears just like a little break before the horns then come back in and play the rest. So that's element number 4. That's day number 4 of Breathe and Go coming to life. And these, at this point, it's like this is the part of the process where you're kind of answering questions. It's like, from what we had made so far, there were still questions like, is it like, could this feel different here? Could this, and these little additions are what finishes a song, and or at least the exploration of trying these ideas, which you can see like in these tracks, we tried a bunch of different things that ended up getting muted, but maybe just keep this one in, these little moments that at the end of the day, like, that is what takes the song to the finish line.
I think it's interesting that at this point in the process, we didn't have like, and I wasn't in the room for the conversations, or like I wasn't like in the text thread of like the specific idea of like, oh hey, like maybe we should put vocals on this. There was like some talk about like finding an MC to like do like a verse on it, and usually what EMEFE does is, it's like, cool, like we wrote this song and like there's a verse in the chorus, and then there's gonna be like a horn solo or like a keyboard solo, and like, well, let's make it the coolest. Well, because it's like in lieu of a vocalist,
Yeah.
It's like that's the storyteller. I didn't mean to be like that. It's always like a stomping a good time or something, like a pirate saxophone solo. But it's like, although there is a pirate saxophone solo on this album, and that's a different episode of this installment. But usually it's a horn solo, and I think that this is an interesting example of like, at that point in the life of the production of the song, that wasn't really even on the table, right? Like that wasn't it. Like this was a candidate for like maybe this is just like a chill song with like a cool melody, and that's that's kind of what it is. It's like a vibey one, instead of like the kind of old hat MFA thing of like, and then there's like a trumpet like bursts through the wall and like plays a solo, so I thought that's an interesting way of, like, for someone that doesn't know how this song came to be, going through it in like with each day, it's cool because you're kind of like building this pyramid, and like you have the foundation layer, and then the next day is like the next layer, and we all kind of had all that context going, but to hear the finished product like with this amazing vocal like composition and performance is just, it's really kind of, it's cool to get the context of like the rest of that pyramid, because it's, or I guess maybe it's more like an iceberg where it's like the tip of it is what your first perception of it when you listen to it, but like all the stuff at the bottom, just like that's kind of holding it up and making it buoyant is great.
Yeah. And I feel like early on we did have like vocal, there were rumblings. We had rumblings. You had like an idea of possible vocalizing. I also, as you said, had like maybe there could be something on this. But at some point, did you just like ran with it, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It was interesting, right? Because I think compared to a lot of other recording sessions I've been on, right? Because I haven't produced anything, right? Like I'll make music at home, whatever, but I haven't been like a producer on a session, right? So my lived experience of a lot of sessions is like coming in, right, performing, either everybody's performing at the same time like we used to do in the past, right? And we just, the song is done in an afternoon, right? And I think had that been the case with this song, the vocals probably would have never happened, because this is not something that I do a lot. So it's not something that I'm so comfortable with that I could just like, kind of the percussion part, I could sit down and come up with a part right there on the spot. I wouldn't have been able to do that with the vocals. But because it was so iterative, and because I kind of had so much time to sit with the version of it, the snowball of the idea kept building, right? And I think it was, I think it was something that we all felt. This song felt different than our normal songs, right? Like it was just, it's like a different, it's just a different song form, right? I like, not that I don't think a solo could have worked on this song, but it would have felt like kind of superimposing a song format that we're very comfortable with as a band, right? Like kind of a thing, like we have phenomenal musicians and phenomenal soloists, right? And so we have like, this thing that works beautifully and that I love. But on this song, maybe it was that it was, now that I didn't know that it was inspired by a Q-Tip song, right? So maybe it was a little bit of that DNA flowing through. Maybe the fact that it is to a click, maybe the fact that it is more cyclical and repetitive and beat-like in the way it was constructed. It's interesting to me that like all of us kind of had ideas of vocals on this song, as opposed to it just being like a song where we have, like you said, like kind of like a intro, kind of like a chorus, solo, another chorus out, you know what I mean? Something that has that kind of structure. I think just having the time with it, I did in the room with Miles, I did kind of like a gibberish version, right? Which I think in my conversations with Miles, and this might be a little bit projecting my own insecurity of bringing this up, but I feel like the gibberish version was where I think I kind of like got the idea across to Miles. Like when I was talking about it, I think Miles was like, yeah, we'll try it, like, not that Miles is the end all and be all, but I think he wasn't really sold on it. And then I think the gibberish vocal, he was like, okay, this is actually like, if you can develop this into something like this could actually work in the song.
Yeah. And
But
just to
then,
interject,
yeah,
my reticence for adding vocals was more like band manager brain, because it was very late in the process. Like, I think it was maybe the last thing that got tracked on the whole album
mm,
at the end of the day. Like, you tracked it in like June or July, I want to say,
it would have been
in
July. Yeah,
when you were in Portugal, which we'll get to, but like, and we started mixing the album in mid-July. So I
yeah,
was already like kind of committed, like this song is almost done, is like pretty much done. So the
yeah.
idea of adding a vocal section was like,
Oh, Jesus.
whoa, okay. But like creatively, I'm like all in to try it, but like it was a different part of my brain that was like, uh, c- eh, uh,
I really
uh.
like the idea that Miles has like a red telephone on his desk and it's like a trombone solo phone. We're just like, we just got to get, like, let's just get a solo on there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to get it in and got to get it out.
Yeah.
That's
He's
funny.
like looking at the phone. I don't know.
But of
if you should make
course,
the
I
call.
wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I would let that like influence a creative decision
Yeah.
when it could be so great if it worked.
I appreciate that. And it was really like, I think it was that go ahead from you that inspired, like, it still may not have happened, right? And I think because it was something that I haven't done before, I was kind of like I don't know. And then when the lyrics hit, like I think the go ahead from you is the thing that made me spend time with the song, like more often, more consistently, with this kind of mind space on, like in this mind space of like, what could this eventually be? And then when the lyrics hit, I was like, like, okay, I really want to do this. But so I appreciate that, because not only, and at that point I was also like scheduling whatnot. I think I was either just about to leave to Portugal, right? And I was there for some time because that's, as you guys know, that's where my wife is from. But the people who are watching this don't know that. But that's where my wife is from, and we were taking like our son to go see his grandparents there, and yeah, and then I recorded it on an iPad with headphones,
And it
and
was the
then
kind of thing where you came in, we did a demo. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, this is not at all. I couldn't have thought of any of what you brought to the table. It was like the pinnacle of collaboration, and why it is the best is like two brains,
yeah,
you know. Um, but then it was scheduling. It was like trying to get it in before you left, that kind of thing. And then ultimately we were just like, all right, well, maybe you could do it when you're there. I don't know how exactly, but it was like, we'll do
we'll
this.
figure it
We'll
out.
get it done somehow.
Yeah, it's crazy. They sound good. For being on an iPad, I don't know what studio magic you did on the back end for them, but like, they didn't sound that good when I sent you the voice memo. Although
Well,
maybe that also has like, it has an interesting quality to it too that you
yeah.
probably got to play with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the voice memo versions of you sending it, like, a lot of what I was reacting to was the vibe of like you kind of hushed singing into doing it
Mm,
into your phone, and like uh there was an energy to how you were delivering it, that, and it did sound good through your phone. Like, it was almost like your phone was doing again, with the beatboxing earlier, like the phone is doing the effects work and the production work for you.
yeah.
So like, uh could have easily been like, oh, let's just put a phone filter on your voice so it does sound lo-fi, but it is its own vibe of how a vocal could sound in a song. So
And
the
that's,
idea of you recording it on your iPad was, to me, like, all right, I could work with that.
It works
Yeah.
too with the lyrics and the conception of the lyrics, right? Which, I'll like rehash it very shortly here because we also talked about it previously, but the lyrics are about like my son and the idea of being a new father, and they came to me like while I was feeding him, like in the middle of the night as a newborn, right? And so the original one was like me holding the bottle and like, like putting on the track on my computer quietly and then just being like, "Por la medianoche," and like the very original one is like literally me whispering into my phone. But I didn't process that actually creative connection to have like, because the lyrics were very, the lyrics were born of that moment, right? And then so to have the actual like sonic quality of the vocals also mirror that moment is cool, and maybe a serendipitous thing that the scheduling didn't work out, right? Because had the scheduling worked out, we would have been in the studio with a microphone. I don't know if I would have had the idea of like, oh no, let's actually record it on a phone so that it has that quality, you know?
And also being in a studio recording with like a nice microphone does psychological things
Yeah.
that
The delivery could have
you don't
changed. Yeah.
realize. Yeah. Or maybe it would have taken a few takes or just to get past that. But you literally sent me 3 takes
Yeah.
of the yeah. You maybe sent me 3 and then 3 of like the backing, like a different range. But you can see here that I think 6 things. Yeah. Should we hear it?
Sure.
A la medianoche me acordé de una cosa, me golpeó por la cabeza y entré en una bossa nova, estilo que pensando en mi hijo y la vida que sigue sin dar cuenta quien lo pide. Óigame muchacho, esta cosa es la verdad. Hay peligro, sufrimiento, no ayuda la edad. Es la experiencia, la manera de tratar. Debo ir más lento porque me quiero apurar. Esta vida es dolor, esta vida es amor. Esta vida es trabajo y el sueño para algo mejor. Todo que se hace con calma y con compasión se logrará. No tengas miedo, no pierdas tiempo, vámonos.
And you'll notice that like there's all these, I did a lot of work trying to cut the space in between your words, because that is something that the iPad recording was not helpful in, which was just, when you sent it to me, it was kind of like a flat line of like, the iPad just compressing it in its weird way. And so I'm going in and stripping the silence in between certain words to make them pop more. Like the plosives or whatever you called them. And also you sent me a few different takes, and so it was like aligning the takes in a way that made so that it's all kind of together. So that was a big chunk of the work. And then there's just plugins, whatever, boring. There's it's standard stuff. If anybody wants to know, you can DM me. But as you can hear, it's just more about the editing and the phrase, like bringing out your phrasing through editing. And then the cherry on top was bringing in your sister Cha to sing.
Yeah.
On top.
Which I was just listening. That was just my falsetto, right? That didn't have Cha yet.
Yes.
That falsetto was me. Yeah. Because I remember I was like, wait, there's the higher register, but then I remembered that I recorded a falsetto, and then Cha came in, and then really, I mean, she has a great voice. That was also wild because I was still in Portugal, so she just came to the studio. You know what I mean? I wasn't there for it, so I actually got to experience it the way I experienced a lot of the other things in this track, was just to actually kind of hear the semi completed version, right? Like the end result. She also did all these little I don't know, these little like improvisational like ad libs in between that I think give it so much life.
Yeah.
Bossa nova.
That line is just because you specifically called it out, and I haven't mentioned this yet. The bossa nova line is interesting because so my wife is Portuguese. I'm learning Portuguese after having like spoken, Spanish in the past, right? And I didn't realize that like bossa nova actually means something, right? It's actually like a new style, right? And for some reason in this moment, it spoke to me as like a new paradigm, which is what I was entering lyrically, right? But it was a funny thing because, I spoke Spanish in my household growing up, right? I can speak Spanish, but it's been rusty. And so I went to a lot of like my friends, Spanish speaking friends, right? Like who like, just like are way deeper into it and could correct my grammar and stuff like that. And they didn't get the bossa nova line, which I thought was funny, but I also liked because it made it feel very, you know what I mean? Like it was an intersection of someone learning Portuguese, right? And like doing like a word play that was just very hyper specific. And so I considered changing it, but I was like, you know what? No, that's my truth right now. And I like it. So
Yes. And I think in the session when your sister came in to record her parts, we talked about that specific line, and she chose to specifically like
highlight
that line where she's saying like
Chaz got my back. We talked about this stuff.
Yeah. Which is a great, by the way, it's just a great drop. Like
it's a great boss. Yeah, that's put that in. That should be part of the sample pack when it's released. Just like be able to hit it. Bossa nova. Do you have some of her like singing vocals?
Yeah, I'll play that
well?
part here.
Yeah.
Vamos. Esta vida es dolor. Esta vida es amor. Esta vida es trabajo y el sueño para algo mejor. Todo que se hace con calma y con compasión.
That's cool. I love that one.
Miedo, no pierdas tiempo, vámonos.
Is that her pitch down or is that me pitch down?
That's her pitch down. Yeah. Well, I have this track here called Vox Weirdo, which is just like basically a bus that I send both your vocals to, and it's just an effects bus where I'm putting on like a slight pitch down, and then also like the stereo effect, same plugin as before, and anyway, not much going on, but together it's like processing all of the vocals together. So
Esta vida es dolor, esta vida es amor, esta vida es trabajo y el sueño para algo mejor. Todo que se hace con calma y con compasión se logrará, no tengas miedo, no pierdas tiempo, vámonos.
So all together, it's like this. It's like I can't describe it without. It's like a sound. It's just like it's a feeling of like crinkling, like a candy bar wrapper. It's just like that's the vocal bus.
It feels like, I don't know if now I'm just like writing this idea and I'm kind of fixated on it, but like this whole session, like the breath. Like every layer of this has like a breathiness to it, like even like Jake's synth parts, the saxophone pads, the initial percussion, like, and now hearing like that, those vocals too, they also have, naturally vocals have breath, but like the production of them also has a breathiness, which I did not... Like similar to the realization with the percussion and the piano part, I think something that was subconscious for me in this song just rose to my conscious mind. And it's very cool. I'm gonna listen to this track differently than I had listened to it before.
Yeah, it's one of those happy accidents that isn't really an accident, but it's just something that unfolds. It starts with that voice memo and then ends with like recording Cha, the vocals on it. That by the end of it, you're like, this was all meant to happen this way. But as you're going through it, you don't necessarily see the path in front of you. And that is what I live for.
A lot of respect and love and admiration for you on that, Miles, because I imagine if I was in your position, there would be versions of this song that I got stuck in my head that I would have a hard time letting go of. You know what I mean? Like you would potentially create a preconceived notion of where the song is heading. And I think your ability to let the song and the music and the art kind of take you and not like hold on to something too tightly. It's very cool. I imagine that's like a conscious effort on your part, right? Because I'm sure it's natural to kind of get into a groove and be like, oh, this is where the song is going. And then have to let go to a certain extent to let it go somewhere else.
I've had a history of being a control freak, and so this band is always is an evolving exercise for me with that, and moderating my control freakiness. And I remember when David Bowie died, everybody was talking about how his like one of his best traits was his like eye for collaboration. And whenever that was, like 2016 or I forget when he died, but like that had an impact on me at that moment, because I knew I was a control freak and I knew I wanted to I respect collaboration, but like that, hearing that over and over in reflections about Bowie made me learn a lot about like just how important collaboration really is to like any process, and it kind of undid a lot of stuff for me that I had built up with like thinking that I knew the right way, or thinking that I just wanted to do it my way. In that moment, like it changed my perspective, and also just having people like you guys to like collaborate with and who are comfortable with coming in. Like Jazz and I started this song together, and then Jazz like trusted me to like take it forward like he has so many times. And like this song wouldn't be what it is without you, Jazz. And yet you also exhibit, you just like trust, you also like let go in this way that, I don't know, it's a mutual inspiration here.
Guys, I gotta go to the bathroom like super badly. So
I think that's a perfect wrap up. I think we nailed it.
Good.
I think we nailed it.
So long, y'all.